Alrighty. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to the first ever episode of Two Bots, One Game. My name is Sully, and alongside me, I have the pleasure of introducing my co host. Some call him the definition of diamond. I call him my buddy. It's Mr. Popey. Unfortunately, we don't get to see his beautiful face today. That's going to be coming soon. But I'm excited for what we have in store tonight. Being able to kind of start off, a couple weeks late, but starting off the year before VCT kicks off, but not before we've already gotten to see a lot of good Valorant already being played. Buddy, I'm excited to be doing this with you.
Same, yeah. This is absolute pleasure.
Uh,
Something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Can't wait.
Awesome. So, no reason to hesitate, and I'm down to just jump on in and talk a little bit about challengers. What was your take on the open qualifiers, especially having started an org that got to participate in it? What was your take? What were your first thoughts? What were your takeaways? Positives, negatives?
Yeah, I think it was really awesome. They've done tournaments very similar, like in past years that I watched, but obviously the stakes I think have never been as high. Like in the past years, they were qualifying, like they had open qualifiers for a big number of teams. I think it was 128 a few times over the past years, but this one was 256 and it was happening twice, and it's basically like you can be anybody anywhere. You can sign up and you have a chance to make it to like the front, the big stage basically. And I don't know, I think that that type of opportunity for teams is it's really cool. It sets Valorant apart from other esports where you can climb all the way up the ranks.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I guess watching the tournament, it was really cool. People were coming out of the woodwork. Players I've never heard of were doing amazing. It was really entertaining
yeah. It was a lot of games. It was a heck
for
of a
sure.
lot of Valorant. I forget whenever I was looking earlier, done at like the LCQ top 32, some of the teams that played a lot. The Nation played a lot of games. Sonics played a lot of games. I think I was looking at like Dark Ratio. In their first 5 days, played close to like 30 different maps in a 4 or 5 day span. Um, Obviously, for some of those first games, they could be very quick because you're playing teams that are not at the same level you are, but it's a lot of Valorant to be playing in a very short time.
For
Um,
sure.
do you think? I mean, it has to weigh on the guys a little bit. There has to be some sort of endurance factor that plays into a team's ability to play effectively.
Yeah, I think I don't know how the best teams do it, but there has to be, I guess, some sort of training for like long-term playing, just being on staring at the screen for like hours on end. Like I can't imagine having to play at the highest level starting at 6 p.m. and you play until like 2 or 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's
And it's
one
like,
thing. It's one thing when it's just for fun, and you're sitting there with the boys, just playing some comp, and time
yeah,
gets away from you, and okay, I just threw 5 hours away for absolutely nothing. But to be like mentally locked in and turned on, games started at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and I think what the last rounds would have started at 10:30. It was like 6, 8:15, and 10:30. So realistically,
I think some of the games started like 12, 15, 12,
that is wild. Yeah, no
depending on
with
how
no
long.
with no tech pauses and everything going as well as it can. You're starting your last match at 10:15 that first night, getting done at 12. That is 6 straight hours of nothing but like
That's the best it can be.
yeah. Uh
So like, yeah, like when we play, let's say we start at 6, like I start to get tired around 12, 1. I'm just not playing as well. But like, obviously, like you were saying, doesn't mean anything. But for them, it's like their whole year is on the line. Like everything that they've committed to, they want to be like top tier. They want to play at the highest level. And like if they lose this map at 2 a.m., then they're out for a year.
Yeah.
Like that's the stakes. I think that's crazy.
Yeah. So whenever you get to look at the 6 teams that qualified, so in the first split, we saw, um, I think they might have this backwards: Breakthrough, Disguise Toast, Oxygen Esports, and Dark Ratio being the first 4 to go through,
Yeah.
and then in LCQ, Squirtle Squad and OR Esports, which I believe OR Esports was formerly Stealing Lunch Money Squad. Who's your best out of those 6 to go through, and who's in your eyes probably stole a spot from somebody else?
I think best team is Breakthrough. If you look at their team, a Proto and Brock are both ex-Ghost players. Thief, I'm pretty sure has been a sub for a long time for a bunch of like tier 1 teams. Fly used to play on FaZe, and I know I've heard Sim, so it's like they all have played like tier 1 level.
Yeah.
So they're definitely a really solid team.
Thief was
Um,
on Luminosity. He trialed for Soar, and then he was on
yeah, that's what it
NSIC,
is.
and NSIC was a top 15, top 10 Oregon NA for a little bit.
Yeah, so yeah, Thief's definitely solid. I remember like a year and a half or 2 years ago, he subbed in for like 100 Thieves or NRG, and they like ended up winning a map. It was like some weird circumstance, and that was the first time I heard his name. And he was playing Duelist at the time, like that was his main. And I'm pretty sure on Breakthrough now he's the controller. So that's just a little interesting fact,
Yeah.
but seemed like he's doing well.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, who really surprised me was the Disguised Toast team. Whenever they were playing like their first couple games, I was like, okay, they're memeing. Toast is doing this for content or whatever purposes. They looked good.
Yeah,
And I didn't realize necessarily before I started looking into it. It was basically just like the Pittsburgh Knights old org.
yeah.
Um,
He's
but then all
paying
the
them good money too. I mean,
yeah,
like, yeah, it's three ex Pittsburgh Knights players and Steele, who is ex 100
100
Thieves and
Thieves.
T1. He's a good player too.
Yeah. So I mean that was a solid roster, and it'll be interesting. I feel like they had a lot of the hype for a little bit. I feel like they were all over Twitter, and the memes of their little stick figures that Toast drew on their actual VLR pages. Just stupid stuff like that. I was seeing it all over the place, and I was like, okay, like how are they actually going to play though? But you look at their last 4 matches they had to play to qualify. They beat Team Fish Taco, solid. They beat Squirtle Squad, qualified for challengers. NSIC 2-0, that's a top 15 team, and Oxygen, who qualified 2-0. Like those are some solid W's to put on the resume
Yeah,
going
no, they're
into
definitely good.
challengers. Yeah, they're solid. Um, so who was the team that snuck in your eyes?
Um, I guess Dark Ratio, like, if I'm remembering right, the Nation beat Dark Ratio, and then they met in the like final, uh, in the final of like the lower bracket again, and Dark Ratio won 2-1. On the last map, they won 13-10 to beat the Nation. So
Yep.
it was definitely pretty tight. Obviously, I don't know if the Nation necessarily deserved it either, but I know you know this, I was rooting for the Nation pretty hard.
It's hard
So
not to cheer for Stewie. I mean, the guy was putting in
yeah.
so much work and just seemed like he wasn't actually doing it for clout. He was seeing he was just projecting the fact that like I want this, and he was so close twice. Like
Well, there was
so
just so
close.
many big names. They had Wardell, Brax, Rossi, ex-TSM, and what's
Tig.
his name? Yeah, Tig, ex-LG. So yeah, I mean, I love Brax. I also just have respect for Wardell because I don't know how he opts so well, but like they just had big names. They obviously they were playing hard, but they would have just been a clout team if they made it. They would have gotten a bunch of hype,
Yeah.
probably would have got signed. Like it just would have been like probably everyone's favorite team if they actually made it. That was why I was rooting for them so hard.
Yeah. The only reason that I'm okay with Dark Ratio making it through was solely for Will. I hated that he got dropped from 100 Thieves, and
Right.
everyone was like, "Oh, what an upgrade! What an upgrade!" Like, yes, phenomenal upgrade for 100 Thieves.
Cryo, you can't
Cryo
beat him.
is Cryo is that guy. He was one of the best, if arguably the best chamber in the chamber meta. Will be interesting to see how 100 Thieves kind of switches things up now that chamber is buried 12 feet under. Um, but I never thought Will was that bad.
No, he's definitely good.
And so to see him succeed and get a spot back in challengers, I'm super excited about. I think I'm a Will fan without really recognizing it.
I'm also looking at their last, few games going into qualification, and Will really did like super well. Like against 99 strength, which was a really good team. He had a 23 kill differential, like more kills than deaths
Yeah,
across 3 maps.
12 first
Against
bloods.
against NSIC, he had 23 again kill difference. Against Rat Attack, he had 5 plus, and against the Nation, he had 17. So he was fragging like crazy in all these games.
Yeah, well, he's solid. And he's proved himself at the highest level already, and I think people kind of wrote him off. But he's legit top tier 1 material.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like that.
so that's cool to see. Alrighty. Um, yeah, challengers was a lot, but there's been a lot more going on in the game, and I kind of want to take a step back from VCT and all that fun jazz and just talk about the new map in the pool, Lotus. Lotus and Split coming in, replacing Bind and Breeze, and I tell you what, I can't decide whether I love Lotus or whether I hate Lotus because there have been some times I get into a comp game and it is the most fun map to play. And then other times I get steamrolled. And I mean it's obviously a skill issue, but I can't figure out what the deal is. So I want to get your thoughts on what's Lotus been like to you so far.
Um, I think I've won every game on it. I've only played like 4, but yeah, I've gotten lucky
Might have to
in my
v might
games.
have to tracker.gg on that one. Might have to
Maybe I've
make sure he's
lost
not
one.
capping.
I've definitely won more than I've definitely only lost one if I've lost one, and I've definitely won like 3, 4, 5. But
So what's working for you?
honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I played one game on Astra because a guy told me to play Astra, and I was like, hey, okay. And I don't even play Astra. But like I was kind of just feeding the duelists. Like I was just setting up sucks and smoking. And in my opinion, it doesn't even seem really worth it on the map. Like it just seems like it's a spot up fight like everywhere on the map. But it worked for us that game. We smacked them. It was like 13-1. I had a jet and a raise that just like dove onto site every single time. I just put down 2 smokes and a suck on site. Never rotated, not a single time. Like it was just free. So I don't know if I like it also. It doesn't feel like the other Valorant maps. It feels very disorganized, and maybe that's just because I sort of remember like this is how Breeze felt too when it first came out. Like no one really knows how to play it. No one knows what the strats are. So
Yeah.
it's really disorganized. It's really just like going down choke points and fighting for it because you don't know how to use utility together. So
Yep.
I don't
That's
know.
that's what it's felt like to me.
Yeah.
Valorant came out yesterday and announced the new team deathmatch mode that's going to be coming out soon. Whenever I'm on defense on Lotus, I'm pushing up to try and get to a choke point.
Yeah, same.
On attack,
I
I'm
don't know what else
pushing
to
up
do.
to break past the choke point. I mean, it's just like you're always going forward, and then undoubtedly they're on the other side of the map, and you got to go sprint for 30 seconds to get over there, or you're just taking a huge firefight at a choke point right off the start. Whoever wins that round. Essentially, it's what it's going to be. It just feels like who can kill who faster. Um, haven't seen a lot of post plan. It'll be very interesting as we see more and more teams play it. Shoot, maybe we see it at VCT lock in and we see some pro teams play it to see what the strategy and approach is. But right now, it feels very quick, very run it down your throat.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't see it slowing down as a map.
Yeah, and I mean the 3 sites, like you have to spread the field, like you have to spread your defensive setup because there's 3 sites. There's always the possibility they can just get a quick plant mid, so you can't. I mean, you obviously can stack sites, but it's more risky than when it's just a 50-50 chance they're either gonna go B or A. So I think, yeah, it's really interesting. Also, something that I didn't notice until I'd played a few times is that from the attacker perspective, there's only 3 choke points that you have an option of going down, like right out of spawn, and
Yeah,
they're really small choke points.
they're
It's
very
either A,
very
B, or
tight.
C. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like if the defense fights for those choke points really hard and pins you like either in them or you squeeze through it and then you're isolated from your team.
Yep.
I think maybe that's why on defense people fight so hard is for that reason. The choke points are so small. There's no really escaping if you come through on all those. Like it's just like wide open space.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting map.
Yeah. I think I was trying that a couple times, whether I was building a playbook for our team or just trying it in a comp game, is can you actually effectively take all three of those choke points at the same time?
Yeah,
Because if you could, you are beyond chilling.
yeah.
Like if I'm offense at that point, I haven't had success early. Um, I'm screwed. And I think that was one of the things of you're going to struggle to take all three. But once you're past those chokes on offense, you're going through. So,
Yeah, you have
besi-
to.
besides strategically, the map is beautiful. Um, I'm a fan of another 3 site map. I think Haven got played solely because it was the only 3 site map. It opens it up for teams that are very technical, have a big playbook, have a lot of options, quick attacking firepower. I think Haven also opens up for really good mid rounding, relying a lot on your IGL and creativity and stuff like that. So it'll be nice to see Lotus kind of come in and take some of that burden off of Haven, maybe some reliance off of Haven, and allow new, younger teams, more creative teams, teams that are down to try something new. That's who I'm really excited to see playing Lotus is these teams that are willing to try something that's new and not just trying to stick with what they know and is already proven.
Here's an interesting combo off the back of this. Just thinking about it with the 3 sites. You think there will ever be a map that has either 1 site or 4 sites?
Hmm.
I think 1 site is more likely, but
I think
will
one
there ever
side is
be a
more
one
likely.
site?
That'd be
Could there
interesting.
be a 1 site that has like 6 entrances?
Yeah, so you have like 3 from defender spawn onto one site and 3 from attacker spawn, or 4 from defender spawn, 2 from attacker, or vice versa. Would the entrances be uneven?
I have no idea. I'm
It's
just
definitely
trying to
more
think if
viable
it
than
could be
4.
possible.
In a 5v5 game, there's no way you have 4 bomb sites. And there's just actually no way.
For
One would be
I'm
really
planning B.
interesting though. I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
I saw some back when people were kind of speculating, here's how I would remake Split before I bring it back into the map pool and stuff like that. Um I saw some really interesting renditions of like a site on Split. It's like you open up coffee shop, you create this little farm or like this little green area behind it, and now you can execute into site from heaven, from main, or like through the coffee shop now. And I was like, you have 3 entrances on the one site. How cool is that? It would be impossible to defend because
yeah.
um you're making that so complex, especially when B site is literally just through a garage. That's an incredibly hard choke point to get through. Um,
That's why Split's so defensive is the chokes are so tight.
Yeah, but I will say that I'm gonna go with a one site map is more likely than a four site because I think a four site is unplayable.
See if it happens. If it happens, you heard it here
As I say,
first.
Riot needs to get on that. Start making like a map mode or a game mode of just like it's like stupidity. And it's like two havens side by side. C sites are merged together. And it's like five sites. I don't know. Okay. Speaking about bringing in two new maps, rotating out two new maps, patch changes. A lot of thoughts on patch changes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the stats that we want to show is with the agent pick rates. Um, what's nice about starting off this year with the North American Open qualifiers was how many maps we got to see played. All of these games were played on patch 5.12, which is changes to the updates, but without Lotus and Split. Breeze and Bind are still in. So the changes to Fade, Killjoy, all of those changes were in. And oh my goodness, everybody played Killjoy and only Killjoy in what felt like every map. So give me your first thoughts about just the patch changes in general, and then we'll kind of jump into how all these teams played during qualifiers.
Did I also go into my opinions
Oh
or
yeah. I'll get opinions always.
okay, cool. Well, to start, I love the state of the game right now because I hated chamber meta because I don't know, it's just chamber is so annoying. Like I'm not an opper, so I didn't get to have fun with the chamber, and it seemed like there was a chamber in every map. No matter what was happening, no matter what the comp was, you would see a chamber, and oh, it was just so annoying. And I missed, because I do play a lot of Sentinels, I missed, when Sentinels were
Actually,
uh,
Sentinels and not duelists.
exactly. Like when Sage was played a decent amount, Cypher and Killjoy were both viable because at the peak of chamber meta, like Killjoy and Cypher were basically just
Well,
worthless.
especially Cypher. Cypher
Cypher,
was absolutely useless during chamber meta.
well, I'm trying to think like what map was Killjoy played on other than Icebox
Ascent,
in chamber meta. Yeah, but
but
even
not
then,
even
it
then
was
because
like
you would go.
barely.
Some teams went, triple initiator, chamber, and a smoke.
Yeah, so it's like Killjoy, yes, she still did get played on Ascent, and she still got played on Icebox a little bit, and then Cypher got played a little bit on like some maps, like Icebox and occasionally I think Bind, like, but they were like barely, and Chamber had like 90%, 80% pick rate, like it was just,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
fracture, chamber,
I can
haven,
rant on this
chamber.
for a long, long time. So basically, I'm very happy with the changes. What I've noticed also is like if you can like look at the agent pick rates across the board, like yes, Killjoy gets picked a lot, but like her max that I've seen in any of these tournaments is like high 60%, and Chamber at one point was like definitely like 95,
Yeah,
90,
that is
like
true.
so it's like even at Killjoy, in Killjoy meta, like even at the worst, it's like she's getting picked at, like, it's not ridiculous in my opinion. And also what it does when you take Chamber out of being just in this ridiculous state is like it spreads it and makes a bunch of like new different comps that I think makes the game very interesting. Another
Yeah,
thing is like Fade's pick rate was really high. Like I'm pretty sure it was like 80, 70% type, and like that's shrunk down a lot too. And so when you do that, like the comps are just so much more diverse, and I
yeah,
think that that makes it so cool. Like some maps, some Sentinels prefer Killjoy, some prefer Cypher, some prefer Sage, some people prefer Sova, some prefer Fade when they want their info initiator. Jet has come back, and I know people maybe don't like Jet also,
Had to
but
get
it's
the
like,
op back.
yeah, exactly. She's not ridiculous. Like Raze gets played, Phoenix gets played a little bit, Neon gets played a little bit. Yaru's all of a sudden getting played slightly more. Uh,
Harbor
you
got
know,
played
it's
more than Chamber.
yeah, I mean, so I'm not supporting Chamber being just dead, you
Yeah.
know,
I personally
but
don't love it. I wish he would have gotten played more. Um for me, like Chamber as a Sentinel has some sort of sight lockdown or flank watch. Those are kind of the two things. Whenever I need a Sentinel, those are the two things I'm looking for. Yes, they enabled Chamber to go way off of sight, which that's not a sight lockdown. You lose his Sentinel value. But I was mad back in, I forget what patch it was, whenever they took away his 2 trips. Because I was like, you
yeah,
literally are just now
that
getting,
was
you're disabling his ability to be a Sentinel. Because now he's
yeah, that
definitely
was
not going to
his
be able to lock
Sentinel
down
thing.
sights. And then, making his stuff more expensive. I mean, cool, but you've not still done anything to limit his range of motion and his movement. And then they just nerfed him into the ground. Like they made his one trip range restricted. His TP now sucks. Like any smart
He
breach
is
player,
so
KO, like
he's so bad, it's crazy.
like and they didn't even they realized that what they had done is they made a duelist and then they were like, we're just gonna make him a very bad duelist. And we're just gonna completely get rid of the fact that he's a sentinel still. So they're like, we're just going to give this dude a guardian that has 5 bullets, and that's essentially all he is now. He's got a one-shot guardian on you, and then an op every, I don't know, 6 rounds because he's not getting frags anymore because he sucks. Like he misses his first shot, he's dead. It's just that's how it is. So I don't love the fact that he's just atrocious now. I do enjoy the fact of, do I want to run Killjoy or do I want to run Cypher? I like having to
Yeah.
ask myself that question.
I just
Secondly,
like when the agent pool is
yeah,
diverse
and it
and
is.
you see some teams play like Phoenix, KO, Omen, Killjoy, X, and then it's like the other team runs like a polar opposite comp that's just effective. Where the other team were in Astra, this team runs Omen. Where the other
Yep.
team ran Phoenix, this team runs Yaru. Where the other team ran, Sova, it's Fade. And it's like, it just makes it interesting instead of like every single game we see a Chamber, every single game we see a Sova. Like we see the same thing on the same maps every single time.
Which I think you and I were actually probably a little impressed by. I'm blanking on the name of the tournament that happened not too long ago. I want to say November or December, where it was freeze out. It was Knights freeze out. And it was essentially
Mhm.
agent drafting. So one team gets to pick an agent, the other team cannot pick that same agent. So you have two comps that are completely different, and it works. The game
Yeah,
has
and the
gotten and
games were
developed to
so
a point.
interesting.
Yeah, it's developed to a point where you're not immediately screwed if you don't get first pick on Breeze and you can't pick Viper because you have an agent like Harbor. Or there are multiple initiators that you can play on any map. There are a Killjoy and a Cypher. If you wanted to run a Chamber, you could do that on Breeze. You can run a Neon. You can run a Jet. You can run a Yaru. You can run a Raze, realistically, if you really were good at it, on a Breeze. So you have these maps that are, I mean, still, we're looking at the stats right here. On Breeze, Jet 96, Sova 99, KO 84, Viper 100, Cypher 97.
If you're not
But
picking Viper on Breeze, you are silly.
but the game is at a point, and I will appreciate the meta shifts and the patches that have changed this, where you could theoretically build a semi-successful composition of non-meta agents on any given map. And if you are willing to change up your playstyle or define a certain playstyle to fit your comp, you can build something around it and you can
Yeah.
have a successful game. So, as far as where Valorant is now, meta wise, since I started playing, I would say it's at a good spot. I wish Fade didn't get hit so hard, because they really tried to like hit every piece of her toolkit. Um, but besides Fade being, I mean, pick rate for what are we looking at right here? This is LCQ stats. No, this is actually every game in North American qualifiers. Fade was the fourth most picked initiator. That's a significant drop from where she was, even though we're
What is
still
that?
definitely in the
There's
initiator
only
meta.
5 initiators, right?
Yeah, she's above Sky, and Sky's sitting down there at the very end at 9%.
Tragic.
Um, but Fade under Breach, you
Yeah,
you
that's crazy.
definitely wouldn't have seen that
Reach
2 months
used to
ago.
not get picked at all.
No, Breach was almost solely Fracture, and he is a 97% pick on Fracture still. Um, so yeah, those are my only two gripes at this point. But as far as the entire game, I think we're sitting at a good spot still. Hey there. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Two Bots One Game. If you have a thought that you'd like to share with us, come drop it in Twitch chat. We record our podcast live on stream either every Wednesday or Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, twitch.tv/DCPL Sully. Thanks. Y'all have a good one.